As a small business owner, you deserve more. More confidence, more connectivity, more of the tools that help your business thrive. And at Cox Business, you can expect more from us. We don't just have sales reps. We have perfect plan identifiers. People who will work with you to make sure your business gets everything it needs and nothing that it doesn't. Your business deserves more, and that's why you can expect more from Cox Business. Call 800-526-8572 to switch today.
Hello there, and welcome to Week 7 of the NFL season. Can't believe we're already here. It feels like just a couple weeks ago, I was in Ohio drafting for the Kings Classic, and now I am down in North Carolina, and it's already Week 7 of the season, and I don't know what to say other than I can't believe it. But what I do know is that this Prop It Like It's Hot podcast, which has an accompanying article over at BigGuyFantasySports.com, is a proud member of the Full-Time Fantasy Podcast Network. And if you happen to catch another podcast that I believe was posted last night over at BigGuyFantasySports.com, the roles were a little bit reversed. I was the guest, Bob Lung was the host, but now tonight, it's a Friday evening, so we switched it up a little bit. So, Bob, I now have the pleasure to ask you how you're doing on this fine evening as we head into Week 7.
I'm doing great. Yeah, it's hard to believe we're only a week away from halfway through the season. Like you said, it seems like it was yesterday that you were in town and we were Kings Classic, and now you and I are both in first place in our respective divisions. Snake draft and auction draft. You're in first in one, I'm in first in the other. So I think we're both doing ourselves pretty well, except for the fact that the team that I have that's 5-1 in the auction league just happened to have Patrick Mahomes on his team. So, yeah. So I picked up Matthew Stafford last night right after it happened, and I have Josh Allen already. Now I'm wishing I would have played Josh Allen this week against Miami, but you can't pinch Mahomes. But anyway, so hopefully he won't be out too long. If I can get him back for the playoffs and make it to the playoffs, which I hope at 5-1 that I could sneak into the playoffs with, even if I go 500 from here, that's 8-4. So I would hope I'd be able to sneak in the playoffs in week 13. So we'll see. But yeah, it is what it is, and we'll move forward. But this is a different scenario here. We're doing some prop bets. We got some good ones to do and some good ones to talk about. And I think there's some tough ones this week. They're not a lot of slam dunks, that's for sure.
Yeah, Thrive didn't make it easy on us this week. And one thing I will say that I can say with confidence now, the Kansas City backup quarterback is Matt Moore. And on the podcast last night when Bob and I were discussing it, we were unsure who the backup was. But now, not only do we know, but all of America knows. Now that Mahomes has that
was almost scary, actually, when you realize the fact that I said, well, unless Patrick Mahomes gets hurt, and we don't even know who the backup is. And then within an hour, I'm staring at the TV and I felt like my gut just got punched as I'm sitting there just staring at the screen going, get up, get up, get up.
Yeah, we had talked about, the backup there, and I can tell you this, right. If there's someone to blame, it's not Bob, but it's certainly not me. So we can leave it there. But no, we're back here at Prop It Like It's Hot podcast again. We're going to go through the same thing that we do most weeks here. So take a look at some of these lines. All of them are courtesy of Thrive. So if you're playing over there, you might see Bob and I in a contest of yours, especially if you enter that $25 one. You'll also probably see me in the $5 one because that's typically where I tend to hang out. But what we'll do is we'll go ahead down a couple lines here, and then we'll get to some of what the prop bet consistency tool says are some good overs, or a good over or a good under bet for the week. And then, of course, we'll wrap it up with Bob's best bet and my best bet. Or two. You never know what we're going to provide. But we'll start with this. Stephon Diggs. He's got a line for this week at 61.5 receiving yards. It's a small 2-game sample. The over has hit 50% of the time. I do think some recency bias might come into play here just because he had an excellent game last week. Yeah. We could say. But before that, you look at his receiving yards, 37, 49, 15. Luckily, he did have that 108-yard performance. But other than these 2 games where he went over 100, it's been 50 or less for Diggs. So we're looking at 61.5 with a 50% rate on the consistency here in terms of hitting the over. So, Bob, we're going to let you go first. Stephon Diggs, 61.5.
That's like you said, this is one of the tough ones. You kind of sit there and go, well, he's had his big game, So does that mean he's due for a letdown? I mean, they are going to Detroit. Detroit is coming off a very tough loss. They really played better than the Packers did, but ended up losing. So I wonder if, I'm not going to say that the refs are, going to be told to kind of take it easy on them, but we wonder if there's going to be some calls against the Vikings this week that may not go their way. But, I'm a little worried because I think I'm going to take the under. I just feel like, Diggs is one of those boom or bust kind of guys. Thielen I would feel much better about because, again, he's more consistent than Diggs for sure. But I'm going to go with the inconsistency that is Stephon Diggs this year, and I'm going to take the under.
I think I agree with you too, and I'm going to look at just I wouldn't use this as your be-all, end-all in terms of playing the under here, but obviously he went over 150 yards last week. In his career, following up games with 150 or more receiving yards, he's posted a 40-yard performance, a 37-yard performance, and then he had a 98-yard performance. So he did surpass this mark that we're talking about once. So right. I am looking at the under as well, and it's just they want to run the football, and Detroit tends, from what I've seen, they'll end up with more field goals and such. This game stays close. I'm going the under as well. I don't feel great about it. This might be like my 8th or 9th selection, if at all, just because right. I'm not entirely sure yet. But yeah, I'm inclined to go with the under as well. We'll move away from the receiver before we come back to it here, but we'll go to New York with who I believe was one of the consensus first picks this year, with Saquon Barkley coming back rather quickly from a high ankle sprain. And his line is set at a pretty solid 82.5 rushing yards. We have a 6-game sample with Barkley here, and of course, 50% of the time that overhit. So 82.5% for Barkley against the Arizona Cardinals, coming off a high ankle sprain. What are you doing with this one, Bob?
This one's against Arizona. It is at home. He's coming back. But, if he's 50% when he's been healthy, you got to believe that this might be, one tweak one way or the other. He could go down and miss half the game. So I'm going to take the under just because first game back, if he was 50% healthy in the past, I got to believe that not 100% healthy, 82.5 yards could be tough because let's be honest, if Arizona is going to try to stop him, I mean, they want Daniel Jones to beat them, which probably could happen because they're not a very good pass defense. But Patrick Peterson's back this week. So my thought is they're going to focus on stopping Barkley. Now, that may mean they don't stop him from getting out of the backfield and catching passes, but this is rushing yards. This is not total yards. So because of the rushing yards, I'm going to take the under.
Yeah, this one is interesting because more often than not, if he wasn't coming off an injury, I'm very inclined to almost take the over just about any time Saquon has a rushing yards line just because he's just so immensely talented. For me, I think this would be a slam dunk over if it weren't for this injury. And I'm looking at recent performances against this Arizona defense. Your love child, Chris Carson, went for 104 yards. You look at other teams, Joe Mixon went for 93, and that's behind a brutal offensive line. Devonta Freeman went for 88 rushing yards. Carrion only went for 49 back earlier in the season, so that was a down. But each of the last 3 weeks, we're looking at a running back that's surpassed 82.5 rushing yards, and I don't think any of those guys are as talented as Barkley. So I would love to hammer the over with confidence, but those high ankle sprains, I've never had one, knock on wood, but they don't sound fun, and they don't sound like they're immune to a recurrence.
No.
So I'm going to actually go the over. I don't feel as good about it as I probably could, but this is a dicey one. This is just going to be a gut feel and what you really think about how healthy Saquon actually is.
Right.
We'll go back to the wide receiver position here, and we're going to get to Keenan Allen, who was arguably fantasy's best wide receiver through the first couple weeks of the season when it felt like he was getting 38 targets per game. And, he had 98 yards in each of the first 3 games. But over the last 3 weeks, 48 yards, 18 yards, 33 yards. Sure, some of those games, other than the Dolphins game, came against defenses that are a little bit better against the pass compared to some of the defenses he faced earlier on. But Keenan Allen, 83.5 receiving yards. And we're looking at it here, actually not at 50%. in terms of the overhitting. We're actually a little bit above 50. In a 5-game sample, he surpassed 83.5 yards in a similar matchup 3 out of 5 times. So, Bob, Keenan Allen here, 83.5 receiving yards going up against the Tennessee Titans.
As it shows in the system shows that, he was been over in the 5 and 60%, which isn't great. I mean, that's certainly better than 50. This offense has been a disaster since Melvin Gordon has come back. And I'm kind of worried that it's going to stay there until Gordon gets going and teams can kind of stay away. I mean, they're playing at Tennessee. Tennessee has been a very good defense all year. Passing yards against Tennessee has been 177, 219, 204, 146. Only one game were there more than 300 yards passing against the Titans, and that was Atlanta, who obviously has a very good pass offense. Now you can say, well, so do the Chargers, but they haven't proven it recently, and they haven't played really good teams in Pittsburgh and Detroit and those kind of teams defensively. So I'm going to take the under here. I really just don't think, I think I already made my picks into Thrive, and I may have actually stayed away from this one. But if I had to pick, I think I'm going to take the under here. I'm just not feeling that offense right now until I see them start clicking again, and I'm not sure when that's going to happen.
I'm right there with you. I think my first tendency here is to avoid, and then my second tendency is take the under. But this, at best, is going to be one of those in case of emergency picks for me this week. But we'll move here to what a system says a strong over bet of the week is, and I believe this will be a very popular one, as this guy is likely going to get some exposure in DFS as well. But Matt Breida's at 55.5 rushing yards. I know he is bothered a little bit by an ankle injury, but this guy always seems to be injured, and he will play. It's just a matter of whether he's going to finish the game or not. But 55.5 rushing yards against a Washington defense that has struggled to stop many just offenses in general this season. I agree with the system. I think it's a very safe and strong over bet for this week. What say you, Bob?
Absolutely. I mean, when he played the Browns, he got that in one play. So, that was pretty simple. So if he could do that against the Browns, should be able to do that against Washington, right? I expect this to be a blowout for San Francisco. They're going to be running the ball a lot between Tevin Coleman and him. And I think as long as Breida stays healthy in this game, I think 55.5 rushing yards is a piece of cake. I think it's like you said, I think this is one of the few slam dunks.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm right there with you. And we'll have to see if he can make it through the game. But like you said, I believe that was the first play of the game against the Browns as well. Yep.
Yeah, one play at 83 yards. So if he can just hit that on the first play against Washington, we're golden.
Yep, we'll take that. And then we'll move to a strong under bet here. We're going to go to Deshaun Watson in a 6-game sample. His line, is at 22.5 completions for this week. In a 6-game sample in a similar matchup, the overs only hit 33% of the time. With this one, for me, I can see how the under could hit. Only thing that scares me a little bit is that Deshaun's he's surpassed 22.5 completions in 3 of his last 4 games. And part of that is, even though Houston's running the ball what seems like every other play, they're just sustaining drives so well that Watson's just getting enough volume to surpass that. The Colts have done a good job in other times, most notably that playoff game last year, in terms of slowing Watson down statistically. And we'll have to see if both teams want to run the ball. This game could move rather quickly. I can see how the under is going to hit. This is something that I'm probably not going to play, to be honest, in Thrive, just because I'm not really sure with it here. But that's just my take on this. What are you thinking here, Bob, with Deshaun Watson at 22.5 completions?
Well, the fact that they're playing the Colts in Indy, the Colts shut down Patrick Mahomes a couple of weeks ago, and that was some night game. I forget if it was Sunday or Monday night, but shut him down pretty well, held him under those under 22 completions. So, it can be done. When he's been over 22, and you said 3 of the last 4 games, he's been playing some very high-powered offenses: Kansas City, Atlanta, the Chargers. Back when Gordon wasn't playing. The other games they were playing against offenses that weren't as powerful, Jacksonville, Carolina, they don't throw that much. They're more of a ball control type offense. The other one was against New Orleans, which was the first game of the year and that Monday against New Orleans. Again, I don't think it's a slam dunk, even though the numbers say it. If I had to pick, I think I would take the under, but I think it's going to be close. He'll probably hit 20 or 21, but The key is to get it under 22. I just don't see that being a shootout. I think I see more Marlon Mack versus Carlos Hyde than it is Watson versus Brissett.
Yeah, I think I can see how that's going to play out. And honestly, too, if you look at the line in the past, those Houston Indy games tend to be up over 50. And I believe this week we are at like 47 or something. Right. So Vegas is thinking 24.
Right. Well, back in the day, it was Andrew Luck versus Deshaun Watson. Big difference. So
well, back in the day, it was Andrew Luck versus Brock Osweiler, Ryan Mallett, Brian Hoyer, Tom Savage. Yeah, right. But those were the good old days. Yep,
the good old days. Yes.
Those were something. But enough reminiscing here. It's time for Bob. It's your best bet of the week. What are you looking at here? What's just the slam dunk? Lock it in, take the points, and move on to the next one.
Well, I'm going to go with Aaron Rodgers. The system shows that at 267.5 yards, that he's only hit the over he's only hit the over 25% of the time. So in the 4 sample game size, he's been under 75% of the time, even with, and this again would have been, and we're looking at the past, and the past would have represented when all of the wide receivers would have been there. Three of these guys, none of them may play we know Devontae Adams is basically out, MVS probably out, and maybe Allison out. I mean, they're going with basically their starting wide receivers, Alan Lazard or whatever his name is. This could be ugly. I can't see how he puts up 267 yards in this game, against Oakland. Got to remember, Oakland, put a beat down on Chicago just a few weeks ago in Chicago. So Oakland's not a pushover like we thought they would be. So I have a feeling this is going to be a tough game. I think it's going to be a lot of running the ball on both sides. Josh Jacobs versus, the Jones-Williams boys. I just don't see him hitting the 267.5 yards. I'm definitely taking the under in that one.
I like Alan Lazard. I like Jake Kumaro. I think they're good. I think they're serviceable wide receiver 3s and 4s, not your 1 and 2. And they have some tight end who stinks.
Is Lazarus?
These days. No, Jimmy Graham. He's done in
No, I meant the fact that he keeps coming back from the dead.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't even know if he's actually coming back because the stats aren't there.
He is still dead. He's walking dead.
How about this? We'll say he's resurfacing at
there
best.
You go.
He's getting his head above water.
He's bobbing.
Yeah, he's bobbing. That's a good way to put it. My best bet of the week here. I don't know. I feel like I talk about this guy every week, whether it's on the Consistently Cashin' podcast, whether it's here with you. But I'm back with Leonard Fournette again. It's week 7. I'm here with Leonard Fournette. He's got a line of 105.5 total yards. It's a high number. However, Fournette just gets the ball literally every other play. They feed this guy. And when you look at his receiving, his prowess in the receiving in this season, coming into the year, I knew that his work in the passing game would increase if he could stay healthy. He has at least 20 receiving yards in every game this season. So if we take the bare minimum there, we're only asking Leonard Fournette to get 85, or I guess 86 rushing yards against this Cincinnati defense. Right. I'm all for it. Cincinnati should struggle to move the ball a little bit. I'm very big on Tyler Boyd this week, so there's a thrive line for him as well. And you'll be able to read a little bit more about that in the article because I think he's going to be fine as well. But Leonard Fournette, I'm all in on him. I don't think Cincinnati stops him. And even if they do, Fournette's going to get 25 carries. And if he gets 3 yards per carry, we're already at 75. So I feel pretty confident with Leonard Fournette.
Well, like you said, in the last 3 games, he's put up 118, 137, and 245. And that's against decent defenses, Denver, Carolina, and New Orleans. So if he can do that against those guys, Cincinnati, you should have 105 by halftime.
Yep, and that would be perfect because then that's one less half of football that I have to stress about.
Exactly.
And then also, too, we'll just throw this in those games, too. You talked about the yardage, too. But look at the total touches, 31, 27, 26.
Yeah.
So,
this boy's all about the volume.
That's all it is. That's all it is. And at times he can be more of a plotter and just kind of like, get there and fall. But then again, 3.5 yards per touch, he's going to be just fine. But that's going to wrap it up here for week 7. I didn't mention this earlier, so I'll go ahead and tell you now. But you can use promo code PROPBET over at BigGuyFantasySports.com. You can save $5 off your VIP subscription and get all the great content over there, whether I'm writing or speaking it, whether Bob's writing or speaking it, whether Ron's writing or speaking it, or anybody else over at Big Guy Fantasy Sports doing a lot of great content output over there. So a lot of great content you can get. You get access to the prop bet consistency tool. You can go ahead and click different statistics for players, slide the slider bar. That's how I'll describe it there, and then you can find the output in terms of whether it's going to be a good bet for you or not. So, Bob, I'll let you have any final parting shots here for Week 7.
You got it. Well, of course, you can find all of us at Big Guy Fantasy Sports. And don't forget, Thrive. So that's what we use the numbers from, because most of the Vegas lines aren't ready for prop bets at this point. So we use the Thrive lines for that. And you can go over and play a Thrive, as Colby said, play against us. And guess what? If you go there and you use the coupon code when you log in and make your first deposit, go there and put in coupon code BGFS for, of course, Big Guy Fantasy Sports. And guess what? They'll give you an extra $10 on top of whatever you put in. So if you put $10 in, you got to put at least $10. If you put $10 in, you get another 10. If you put 20, you get 10. So you get 10 free dollars. So that's perfect. And then when you win the first week, you can come over and, get the prop bet consistency tool and use the code prop bet and save some money. So boom, you get best of both worlds for about $25. So can't beat that. So make sure you go over and do that. And as always, Colby, thanks for putting this together, and looking forward to getting some numbers and keep our winning ways at Thrive and in Vegas.
Absolutely, you got it. If I'm not mistaken, too, over at Thrive, when you go ahead and deposit that 10, you get your free 10 afterwards. I believe that's immediately in your account, too. There's no play to unlock that bonus or whatever. That just goes right into your account. Yeah. So sure does. You'll have all that right away. So I have nothing for Week 7 other than go Texans. As everybody knows, we'll have to see there, and hopefully we all win some money on Thrive using the prop bet consistency tool over here at BigGuyFantasySports.com. So I wish you all the best, and for Prop It Like It's Hot in Week 7, we will see you in exactly 1 week at the almost halfway point of the NFL season. See you then. Good luck.
A few voicemails from real Banner Health patients.
They worked beautifully as a team. They knew what patients needed. They were very reassuring.
They gave me peace of mind, so I really appreciate the staff at Banner.
I have never been treated so professionally and so lovingly and so caring.
I just wanted to say thank you very, very much. I actually didn't want to leave. I wanted to stay longer.
We're here to help you breathe easier. Banner Health. Exhale. A voicemail from Dorothy, a real Banner Health patient.
I had a procedure yesterday. It should have been terribly daunting, but the women that helped were absolutely fantastic. They worked beautifully as a team. They knew what patients needed. They were very reassuring. Their professionalism showed all the way. Thank you so much.
We're here to help you breathe easier. Banner Health. Exhale.